to make it short, let's start our second session because of Ibu Sandra already ready. So Ibu Sandra, please, time is yours to start the second session. Thank you.
Or good day, distinguished speakers and also participants, and of course the organizing committee. My name is Sandra Moniaga. I'm a fellow of Samdhana Institute and member and co-founder of PUMA. It is honor for me to be invited as the moderator for this session. Can you hear me, Ibu? Yeah, okay. My first encounter with the Badjo or Sama people happened during my period of working with Walhi long time ago, 1989. But they almost disappear or unseen from my works after that. Most of the people organization which I've been involved and or cooperate do not have the sea nomads as their member or community they assisted. And also, there is no single complaint of Bajau people case registered at Komnas HAM during my tenure since 2012 until 2022. Thus, I'm more than excited with this initiative. Special appreciation to the trio of Sea Nomads Contact Group, former Directorate of Culture, which became the Ministry of Culture since last October, all the scholars, who have special interest to sea nomads, and all Bajau Sama people, suku laut Sama-Bajau in Sabah, the Chao of Thailand, who've been suffered, struggled, and surviving. So here we are. Let's continue the great discussion that we already started with the session for the first session. We will have 4 amazing speakers: Professor François-Robert Zacot, Dr. Wengki Ariando, Professor Gusni bin Saat, and also Professor Dr. Narumon Arunotai. We'll begin with the first speaker, the legendary Professor François-Robert Zacot. I think I saw Professor Zacot already here. Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Professor Zacot is an ethnologist and anthropologist who conduct ethnographic research in Southeast Asia, particularly in Indonesia, as well as in Guatemala and Sri Lanka. He has carried out numerous ethnographic missions for research organizations, universities, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and UNESCO. Professor Zacot has directed and produced documentary film. He teaches ethnology and continues his research, and also actively engage with the Badjo people, advocating for the preservation of their culture and opposing efforts to settle them permanently. And today, Professor Zacot will stimulate us at the beginning of second session on the topic of seeking to understand and to act the Badjo Indonesia. Professor Zacot, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to be invited for this symposium. I'm very glad, even if it's 5 o'clock in the morning here in Paris. It's good for me to join you. For this symposium, how to resume in 15 minutes more than 40 years of research about Badjo people in Indonesia. But I will try to get some Greek line. I think that there are 2 attitudes regarding the symposium. Thinking to know and thinking to act. And I will try to illustrate how these 2 outlines are closely connected in the case of the Badjos. First point is how my story with the Badjos participate of their own story. For my first mission in 1976, I was not supposed to go to study the Badjo people. I was supposed to go to Tomini. Tomini, it's an area the west of the Gorontalo. But for administrative reason, Badjo people, and nobody knew about Badjo. They asked me, is it a food? Is it a song? Is it a place, or what is it? And of course, I didn't know anything about this culture, since there was no book about that. At least maybe Thatcher so far, but I read it after my first mission. So I tell you that why? To underline how significant was the situation of the Badgers, very isolated 40 years ago. So I start my fieldwork. I was immersed in this sociology, these values, the situation out of the ordinary. With the Badgers, everything at that time is there to surprise the observer. He doesn't know, he doesn't understand anything at first. He tried to invent false hypotheses. At that time, I was living my mission in a village very far from England, about 15 minutes in a canoe, motor canoe, on the sea. I had my own house, my canoe, and I lived like Badjo people during 2 years. And at that time, there is no connection very evident with the outside world. We receive every 2 or 3 weeks news from outside. I receive letters 2 weeks, 3 weeks, each 2 or 3 months. But one day I received letters, and in this letter there was an article sent from a famous anthropologist named Ariando. And this article, I don't know how he knew that I was on the film, you know. And the title of this article confirms my feelings on the unique character of Badjo culture and society. The title is "You Will Remember Us Because We Have Sung for You." So I shared the same situation with Badjo people. Ariando perceived also something unusual about the Badjo that had caught his attention to the point of making it an organizing principle of society. So this article matched the perception I had of Badjo society, and that I believed to be too subjective, poetic, romantic, full of mysteries. And I want to precise that we must be maybe careful, not us in this symposium, but for other people, we must be very careful about the word unique applied to Badjo, because this word could mean different from others, strange, exotic, maybe savage. Because I remember in Menado at that time, people recommend me not to go to the island with the Badjo people because they have very magic, very strong. Okay. If we recognize the unique relationship to the environment, it is not enough to say that. In this case, anthropology can only be different from the classical one. Different in its method, in its concept. What does all suggest? First, that when you live with the Badjos, in addition to the impressive adaptation to the environment, and I can testify it, living a life, Badjo is my canoe, and after 2 years, it's quite hard to go back to the town. In addition of the impressive adaptation, okay, to the environment, their vision of the world, this is very important. the relationship with the history, you realize the extraordinary ability to manipulate reality and imagination, the real and imaginary, and which is the confirmation of a separate language, a kind of meta language. This is the reason why within anthropology, history, and else approach themselves, we must also change our pattern of reference if we want to have a possibility of accessing the Badjo self or the Badjo soul. That is to say, not to evaluate the Badjo culture according to our own. Let's move to the second topic. I could mention all the aspects I analyzed through 40 years, okay, but it's not today. We need, I think, to appreciate the correct identity of the Badjos. In the same time, to take in account the history and territory, all these other subject about Badjo, okay, but we must, I think, appreciate the correct identity. That is important because like in other traditional society, the Badjos has deeply organized a structure of symbols created by its culture. Why is this important in the context of the symposium? Because this is the only way we can provide real answers to the challenge of preserving this unique culture. Let's try to understand beyond originality what could be fundamental in this culture. First one, the relationship with the water. I say water, but I could say also the sea. I say water, why? Because the Badjo say we come from the water. We are created from the water. So it's why I say water. It means also the sea, of course, like the Badjo say when we ask them what is Badjo, kita tika madiao. We come from the sea. We come from the sea. Okay. We come from the sea, it's sure. And the second point, they say to what is Badjo is tika madiao katanan baung sama. To know the Badjo language. Okay. But we cannot understand this relationship if we do not associate another pattern. It means the refusal of the life on Earth, the inland life. Therefore, a link to other societies. Here, we must underline a word, Sama. Of course, you know it, Sama. But we call the Badjo Badjo. But between Badjo people, they call them Sama. Badjo is the word that we use, we, us, outside from the Badjo. And the other word is Bagay, of course. The Bagay for the Badjo people is the rest of humanity. Hong Kong, African, French, okay, we are Bagay. Second point, if the Badjo identity is not related, connected to a place, to a territory, to a country, it means that the identity, in a certain extent, and according to me, of course, is existing, is prevailing first in the other Badjo. The other Sama the person Sama, represent my identity. Second point, the Badjo identity is where the other Sama are settled in all other Badjo villages. I am Sama if I encounter another Sama and if I go to another Badjo village. Third point, of course, there is the nomadic way of life, traveling. That is identity. What does it mean? How can a people living on the sea, isolated during centuries, with a very singular history, a myth of origin, very important, ikiko or iko-iko, a relationship with the other, the bagay, not so unusual. How can these people not have incorporated a relationship with their environment, but in a confidential, sensory, and conscious way? It's impossible otherwise. There is necessarily a relationship between Badjo life and two psychological levels of concept: the subjective and the objective, the real and the imaginary. This link, according to me, is the matrix of the identity, a language that goes beyond culture. Third topics, the challenge. We must agree, according to me, on three arguments. First one, what I can say, me, François-Robert Zacot, French, living in Paris, spend my life with Badjo people, with my canoe, going to follow the rituals and everything. Okay. What I can say about Badjo is forcefully different from others who didn't share the Badjo daily life. So the experience is a function of their shared history with the Badjo. It's important. Second point is, before to decide what we must think for Badjo, recommend for Badjo's people, we must agree about what Badjo culture is really, the identity. Last point is what the Badjos themselves consider to be challenges. Maybe we think differently. So we must keep, I think, in mind that for Badjos, who were nomads, very isolated, etc., in the mind of the Badjos, with the vision of the world, a mode of education of the child, very important, very different. They have not required any meeting or exchange with the outside world. This outside world means confrontation of civilizations with consequences, of course, or more exactly, conflicts that we do not see. Maybe it's, according to me, it's a kind of tsunami for their minds. I can give a lot of examples about that. But be sure I'm not a man who belongs to the past. I say that because it's, according to me, it's important to take into account. Okay.
Excuse me, Professor?
Yes?
Just 1 minute left.
Yes, I finish. I finish saying that the Badgers should appreciate indecision, territorial, administrative development, and others. And the last point, we must not forget that in many situations, the life of a population is a function of its way of life. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor. If we are in the room, we should give a big applause. Thanks. I will not make any summary. We will proceed with the second speaker, which is Dr. Wengki, who is one of the brains of this first international symposium and upcoming first national gathering of Bajau Sama peoples of Indonesia in Luwuk Banggai. Dr. Wengki Ariando is an activist researcher who primarily conducts research in participatory action research setting. His main research interests include coastal and small island development, political ecology, marine conservation, climate change adaptation, indigenous resource governance, with particular focus on the sea nomadic communities in insular Southeast Asia. Dr. Wengki has a long history with several institutions, especially research institutions. At this moment, he is attached to BRIN, or the National Research Center and Innovation Agency of the Republic of Indonesia, who used to be LIPI, and now it's become BRIN. So Pak Wengki earned his Bachelor of Science in Applied Meteorology from IPB, Institut Pertanian Bogor, and his MA and PhD from the Interdisciplinary Program of Environment, Development, and Sustainability of Chulalongkorn University, Thailand. His PhD research involved an ethnographic study during which he lived with the Sama-Bajau people in Wakatobi National Park for 14 months. I will not talk too long about his background, but the presentation will be on sea nomads and coastal marine grabbing in Indonesia. A very interesting topic. Pak Wengki, the screen is yours.
We have heard the stories and then the diaspora and also the past issues of the sea nomads. For me, I'm going to talk about the contemporary issue of sea nomads, especially Indonesia. As Bu Sandra mentioned that I have been working with the sea nomad Indonesia for Bajau and also for Orang Laut. My presentation today, I'm going to talk about the sea nomad and coastal marine grabbing in Indonesia. The contents, I'll talk about introduction, Indonesian sea nomad, the current development discourses, case studies, and discussion reflections. So this is the data that I got with the sea nomad contact group and also my long ethnographic research in Indonesia. As you know, Indonesia, we have 14 provinces of the Bajau people and also 5 provinces for Orang Laut. Mostly for the Bajau, we have in the center of Indonesia to the eastern part of Indonesia, then the Orang Laut in the western part of Indonesia. So this is the slide I think Pak Dedi already mentioned in his introduction in the morning. We try to group the sea nomads based on the sedentary pattern. The first one, the one who still live on the boat. As my experience, we only have one last group of the real nomadic people. There is in Lingga Regency in Tajur Biru. The second group is, we call it those who have settled and established the house in the shallow water or the still house. And then the third one, the one who already stay in the island or in the coastal areas. So this is the background of my research. Actually, this research is part of my previous project and then already published in one of the book chapter. I talk about the development interest and then compare the cultural space of sea nomads in leading to the marginalization and oppression in the right to access the resources. And then, as you know, the sea nomad content of their rightful place in evolving socioeconomic landscape. The sea nomad understanding of space is not solely the physical entity encompassing landscape and seascape, but also space mean for them is cultural identity, knowledge, closely intertwined with the deep ecology, tenurial compassion, and social complexity in the sea-land boundaries relation. And sea nomads who are often marginalized, we heard from all the speakers mention about this, and have limited political and economic power. And it leads to vulnerable to the coastal and marine grabbing. And the loss of livelihood and displacement of the marine and coastal grabbing also lead to the erosion of the cultural identity, access to resources, and social cohesion themselves. And based on the literature and then my research experience working with the sea nomad in Southeast Asia, we try to see what kind of contemporary issue that now happening in the sea nomads locations. So current coastal and small island development, we have industrial area as a challenge, conservation industry. I use this term from Professor Narumon. I think she's going to talk in detail about this issue. Massive tourism development, real estate industry, land use transitions, shrimp farming, mangrove coral industry, especially for orang laut, sand mining in the western part of Indonesia, nickel mining for eastern part of Indonesia for the Bajau, resource scarcity, and also other issue of environmental flux like climate change and related to the other natural resources scarcity. And in this presentation, I'm bringing 4 case studies. The first one is orang suku laut or orang laut in Batam, Riau Island province. They have problem with the land right, especially with the, if you are Indonesian, you know, with the Rempang issue, PSN or National Strategic Plan of Indonesia. And also we have orang suku laut in Lingga, they fight with the sand mining. We have people, Sama-Bajau people in Berau in East Kalimantan, where they have limited access to the transnational issue and boundaries between Indonesia, Malaysia, and the southern part of the Philippines. And then the last case studies, I'm bringing the issue of nickel mining in Sama-Bajau in Bombana, Southeast Sulawesi. So this is the situation that my last field work in July 2024, sand mining industry, orang laut in Lingga Regency, where it's growing for the past 3 years. Yeah, as what did I analyze from my research in Kojong Island and Panaah. Yeah, I put the the tagline like sand as a market demand from coastal development and the neighboring countries, because this sand will send to other neighboring countries such as Singapore, to China, and other region like Cynthia Chu mentioned in the morning presentation. So a part of that tagline, I try to analyze using the what kind of the impact to environment, to economic and social impact and health risks. So what I found from the research, we found it the destruction of coastal ecosystem, including coral reef and mangrove forest. I have some evidence about this. Water pollution from sediment and chemical runoff, or they call it tailing of the sand washing. And then loss of biodiversity and marine life, of course, coastal erosion and island shrink, sea level rise, economic loss, decline in fishing cage and traditional livelihood, increased cost for fuel and fishing equipment because they have to do fish further from the normal one that they have before, because the water already polluted by the tailing of the sand mining. Reduce tourism potential to the environmental damage, of course, because the coral reef already not really in a good health anymore. Social impact, displacement of community from their traditional territories, conflict between local communities and mining companies, loss of cultural heritage and traditional knowledge. This is the very important issue. In terms of health risk, exposure to air and water pollution leading to respiratory and other health problems. And the second case is nickel mining industry. This is in Badjo, Bombana Regency, Southeast Sulawesi province. As you can see how the water get polluted from the nickel industry. I think this is the same issue with the sand mining, but this one is worse because you see that the target of Indonesia to be like the first exporter of the nickel, and one of the mission of our current government, they call it hilirisasi or downstreaming, where the use of nickel for the green transition for electric car. So if you see in the grassroots movement and the grassroots impact, so this is what happened from the Badjo community in Southeast Sulawesi. Environmental degradations, of course, we still have the same situation with the sand mining, destruction of coral reef, mangrove forests, loss of biodiversity, water pollution, economic impact, decline in fishing catch, increased cost of living, job displacement, economic dependency of mining companies. Is it quite different with the sand mining? Because for the sand mining, they don't recruit for the orang laut to work, but in the Badjo people, mostly the laborers with like a daily payment, they got it from the Badjo. And then social impact, cultural erosion, lost traditional knowledge, social conflict, health problem, forced migration and displacement of the communities, political and legal challenges, weak enforcement and environmental regulation from national level until village level, corruption and rent-seeking behavior in the mining industry, and lack of transparency and accountability in the decision-making process. The third case studies, we call it conservation and territory in Sama-Bajau in Bero Regency in East Kalimantan, location in Tanjung Batu, Derawan. So this is, I put the tagline, conservation national boundaries exclude the nomadic livelihood and practice. It leads to marine grabbing. The marginalization in conservation and development, conflict with marine conservation regulations, transboundary issue and state sovereignty, economic disparity and livelihood challenges, social stigmatizations and discrimination, and last one, of course, environmental degradation and resource depletion. The fourth case studies is industrial part, or we call it PSN, Project Strategi Nasional or National Strategic Plan, National Strategic Project. That's several locations in Indonesia, but in Rio Island Province, we have, if I'm not mistaken, around 6 locations, but 3 of these PSN or industrial area are the home for orang laut. This is in Batam, and as you can see, this is the house of orang laut. I heard from the current situation now, this location already relocated, but there's no much news talking about this, because if you know Rempang, mostly people will talk about the mainland people that they fight, but the characteristic of the orang laut and also the organization who work with the orang laut, they don't really raise this issue into the national debates. And its location in Air Mas and Ngenang in Batam City. National Strategic Project or PSN exclude community for inviting investor for economic development. Forced displacement, this is the main issue there, loss of livelihood, cultural erosion, social disruptions, environmental degradation, and lack of consultation and participation of the nomad to decide the development plans that needs to be dealt with their interests. I tried to analyze how this coastal and marine grabbing and lead to the marginalizations. So I tried to see the limitation of access to marine resources with the evidence say that economic exploration and competitions, ecosystem changes, and territorial seizure or grabbing, coastal and marine restriction, territorial access, labeling and discrimination, also one of the issue for the why these people are vulnerable for the grabbing, because mostly from the islander, they have negative stereotype for this community, for both Bajau and also for orang laut. Social discrimination in terms of the policy, in terms of development plans, and also the last point is the intercultural relation and acceptance by dominant society. In terms of marginalization and decision-making, lack of participation in social movements, different interests, and lack of knowledge about the policies. And in terms of the limited legal recognitions, I always mention there is no umbrella to protect the nomads, because if you know that the problem is because of, if we define the indigenous people or masyarakat hukum adat Indonesia, they always use the term of ancestral domain, which is ties to the land definition. But for these people, for orang laut, for the Bajau, they cannot be part of the definition of the masyarakat adat or masyarakat hukum adat, because they don't have land, they have the sea as the common resource for them. So this is the problem. How do we recognize these people in terms of the body of the legal in Indonesia? And then my reflection for my research journey, working with this the nomads, because we have some problem, and then also we have the solution that we are working with the nomad contact group and also our network, the coastal and marine appropriations related to the grabbing, lack of loss of access to resources, a weak recognition of customary rights. This is the main issue as well. Environmental degradation, social disruptions, need for holistic and participatory approach. And of course, the last one is research focus with working with the contemporary issue, because if you search like it on internet or on the academic literature, not many people working with the contemporary issue of the sea nomad. Mostly they work with the glorification of the sea nomad. They are good in diving, they have this, they have that, but the current problem like not much been discussed in the academic literature. Thank you very much. Yes, this is all of my presentation.
Wow, right on time. Even we still have 1.5 minutes. Thank you, Pa Wengki. Very much appreciated. It complete the story about the Bajau in Indonesia, and I think we have to move to the other country. I'm sure there will be more questions to have more elaboration from Pak Wengki during the question and answer session later on. The next speaker is from the neighboring country. We would like to invite Professor Gusni bin Saat from University Malaysia Sabah Foundation. Selamat siang, Prof. Gusni. Prof. Gusni's specialization is in sociology of development, including urbanized communities and development, Bajau studies, ICT and development of rural indigenous community, urbanism and everyday life. The latest publication related to Bajau was together with Mokhtar and Mansur Kasim, is about diaspora impact to indigenous of Sama di Laut in Sabah, Malaysia, in Quantum Journal of Social Science and Humanities, first edition in 2020. Thank you, Professor Gusni. The screen is yours. We have 15 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor. First of all, I would like to thank to the organizer for being invited me to speak in this conference or symposium. Assalamualaikum and very good days to everybody, especially also to my friend Prof. Fadila. I saw there. Today, I'm talking about the one specific topic to the Bajau in Malaysia. Title is Sama-Bajau in Malaysia: Cultural Identity, Social Mobility, and Development from the Past to Present. I think hello, okay, already appeared there, my slide. No? I would like to talking about the ongoing journey of the Sama-Bajau sub-ethnic group in Malaysia by highlighting their cultural identity, social mobility, and development over the time. The first slide, the second slide. Can you move the second slide, please? The second slide is about the cultural identity. The Sama ethnic in Sabah is rich in diversity, encompassing various sub-ethnic groups that contribute to the cultural tapestry. Among these groups are the Sama di Laut, or Bajau Laut, along the Bajau Kubang, Bajau Ubian, and Bajau Sama. Each group adds a unique perspective and tradition, like highlighting the importance of preserving and celebrating this vibrant heritage. They embodies two essential identities: self-identity reflecting their personal sense of belonging, and mutual identity which highlights their connections between with the others. Identity within this group is characterized by specific traits such as the name of the place of origin, dialects of their language, the cultural norms or values that differentiate one subgroup from another. The mutual identity encompasses universal aspects such as the ancestral homeland, the parent language spoken by Sama-Bajau, a sense of belonging in terms of Dinakan, for example, Sama term, and the shared heritage of maritime people of Southeast Asia. These universal sociocultural elements, I think, create a bond that unites all Sama-Bajau sub-ethnical group in Sabah, Malaysia. Different ethnic groups actually have distinct names that reflect their place of origin. For example, the Bajau Kubang claim originally from the Omadal Island. Later, they are separate to other locations like Boom Boom Island, and later, early 1916, they are occupied the mainland of Sampona surrounding the town area. The Badjo Ubian also claim they come from the Ubian Island in the southern Philippines. Sama-Bajau claim the ancestral origins from the sea, which emphasize their customary rights to both the sea and the island. These rights have been passed down from their ancestral who historically actually inhabited the Sulu Sea and the Celebi Sea. The cultural identity of the Bajau Kubang, Bajau Laut, and Bajau Ubian are very similar actually, especially language and some of the cultural and material and non-material culture. The Bajau Sama people can trace their origins back to Mengkabung Lagoon on the west coast of Sabah, where they have established their presence since the 17th century. During the indigenous era, Bajau Sama were steadfast followers of the Pangeran, the respected landowners granted territories by the Sultan of Brunei, encompassing several rivers and coastal area along the Sabah west coast. The cultural traits are intertwined with those of the Brunei and Dusun ethnic groups, reflections of their deep-rooted social connections, including intermarriage and sharing physical and economic space. About the social mobility, Sama-Bajau in Sabah has enduring social mobility through three social formations, namely the era of indigenous people until 1880, the Western colonial 1881 to 1963, nation-state of Malaysia since 1963. Except Sama di Laut, the Sama-Bajau sub-ethnical group in Sabah has demonstrated remarkable resilience and adaptability in each era, navigating the complexities of state policies and their own abilities to adapt to various social systems, particularly in politics and development. Regarding the politics, as shown in Table 2, the political adaptations ability of each ethnical group, Sama-Bajau, are different. Among the four ethnical groups, Sama-Bajau face significant challenges to their struggle to adapt to relevant social system, especially the Malaysian nation state framework. This inability to integrate impedes their progress and highlights the need for targeted support and inclusive strategy to foster their development. Regarding the development, overall, the trend of development achievement among the Sama-Bajau across the three social systems, Sama di Laut, across the three social systems is declining, especially with the state social system of the Malaysia. Sama di Laut are excluded from the mainstream aspect of national life. One of the reasons because they are stateless people. In contrast, for example, the Bajau Sama, Bajau Kubang, and Bajau Ubian have demonstrated successful political and development achievement. For instance, they have secured leadership position and made significant.
Sorry for the interruption, but I think it's a very interesting presentation. We hope Professor Gusni can return to the screen later on to complement the stories, data, and analysis about the sea nomads in the region. We have Professor Narumon Arunotai from Thailand. Professor Narumon is an anthropological researcher with over 30 years teaching and research experience. At present, she serves as associated researcher at the Social Research Institute and part-time lecturer at Chulalongkorn University. Her research covers the topic of indigenous peoples and alternative development. Her work on the Chao Lai or sea people in Thailand began in 1992, started with the Moken of Surin Islands in Hang Ha province, and expanded to cover the Moklen and Urak Lawoi. After she joined Chulalongkorn University Social Research Institute, she received funding from UNESCO Bangkok office, Chulalongkorn University, Thailand Research Fund, Princess Sirindorn Anthropology Center, and other sources, which enabled her to have collaborative effort with other individual or organization in several sectors. This facilitated the passing Thailand Cabinet resolution on the revitalization of Chao Lai life ways. So today we will hear her presentation about Chao Lai, Thailand Sea People in Development Era. Professor Narumon, the screen is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And hello, everyone. May I ask the operator to help with the screen sharing and PowerPoint? Okay, thank you. Great. So I'll be talking about Chao Lai, which is the term that Thailand used to refer to the sea people. But actually, Chao is people and Lai is short for Thale, which means sea. So Chao Lai is umbrella term for any coastal communities, coastal people and island people. But what we are talking about today is Chao Lai as indigenous people, as a particular ethnic group in southern part of Thailand. Next slide, please. So this is the term Chao Lai, sea people, sea nomad. And in Thailand, these people have home in the upper part of Mugui Archipelago in Myanmar down to southern part of Thailand, but only in the Andaman side, Andaman Sea, which is part of Bay of Bengal. I think my map is really small, but then Dr. Pitiyawat, who will present in the next session, will have a larger map to show the resident area of the Moken and Mokland. And if we see the photos on the left-hand side showing the Moken, Mokland, and Urak Lawoi, and maybe we don't have time, but if I ask you to pick which one is the Moken, which one Mokland, which one Urak Lawoi, those who became more sedentary are Urak Lawoi and the Mokland. And the uppermost photo is the Moken who lived on boat and travel around the islands even before the boundary between Thai and Myanmar. So this boat is home to them, as well as vehicles to take them places for their livelihood, for their fishing. Next slide, please. So these are the ritual, which is quite distinctive among the three groups. So even though we group them together under the term Chao Lai, they have difference. Dr. Pitiyawat will talk about different dialects or different language, different use of terms. The Moken have their own ritual, which is the the spirit post of the ancestors that they celebrate during the transition of the monsoon. The Moklan have another ritual where they pay respect to the ancestors as well as the spirits, both of the forest and the sea. So I think today we are talking about territory and lands and waters. These people, especially the Moklan and Uraklawoi, make use of the land, and they have settled down for quite a while. And then the Uraklawoi, they have floating boat ceremony organized twice a year, of course, with a transitional monsoon, westward monsoon and eastward monsoon. Next, please. So I think many of us also cover the development and impact of development on the sea nomads in general. I think every group, they receive the impact more or less. When we think about Southern Thailand, we think about tourism, which is really a fifth waves of development. I talk now about 7 waves of development occur in Southern Thailand. This is like coinciding with the legend of 7 waves that the Moklan, Uraklawoi have, which signifies the tsunami or giant wave that they believed would come like once in 2 or 3 lifetimes. So they have experienced these waves of development, from charcoal industry to mining to monocrop to large trawlers, fishing industry to tourism. With the tourism now, land price hike also bring real estate industry. And of course, when we think about protected area, when we think about conservation, now we have conservation effort that may turn into conservation industry in terms of scale, in terms of investment and the capital involved, and in terms of neglecting the human dimension of conservation. So several Chao Lei communities were encapsulated or enclosed. Like the photo that I show you is one of the Uraklawoi community in Krabi province, in Phuket province. You can see the houses built after the tsunami. So permanent houses provided by the government, but only provision of housing, but not with, revitalizing the whole landscape or the whole area. So we see that part of the community is a swamp with polluted water, and people have to set their house on this. Many communities were displaced from where they used to live, fish, gather, or organize their ritual. And I did mention that the total population in Thailand is only 14,000 in 46 communities. And about half of the 46 communities, or about 20 or so, have the problem with land. So land dispute, land court cases have been really a regular daily struggle for these people. Next slide, please. So the situations we saw is, of course, marginalization, sedentarization, meaning that although there's no forced sedentarization, these people don't have any choice. That's why we mentioned alternative development. We have to have alternative development for the semi-nomadic people to have several areas to set up fishing grounds, the place where they can put their fishing tools, nets, and also the place where they have the shelter during the wind and storm and rainy season. And of course, I think lastly, victimization is what we found. And we saw like news headline like this, Bangkok Post mentioned the Deputy Prime Minister steps into Sea Gypsy land dispute. The problems has been quite well known nationally. So many governments try to identify like committees, solutions to solve the problem, but it's structural problems as well as the difficult problems to solve once the land or the property belong to the individual or the private company. And even Jakarta Globe cover on the Thailand Sea Gypsies fight for access to ancestral shrines. So I think we see this headline news all the time. And even though we have government effort, then the problems still continue. Next slide, please. When we think about the future, the alternative future, alternative development for these people, I think we need to rethink. We have to think, like many other researchers and professors already mentioned that sea-based, ocean-based, and the use of land, the use of waters. So maybe the future for most of us, can become hyper-connected with this globalized world. We think about settlement, we think about security, we think about centralization, but we found more and more people prefer to be digital nomads. But then we don't have any place for original nomads. And also individualism in this future of us, individual land entitlement, individual property, something which is far removed from collectivity of the indigenous people. So we have to think about the future or alternative development that think about moderately connected, allowing places and sites for semi-nomadic people. And also think about communal freedom, community land entitlement, community security. Next, please. And came COVID. I think during COVID, we have some reawakening, but it doesn't stay long. Actually, COVID should be a time for rethinking, especially for these indigenous people. And we can see the headline like this: Chao welcome pause on tourism and construction. And Chao, many of them said, oh, the life began to feel better during COVID because they still survive, from the fruit of the sea. And there's less and less threat from the all these industry or all these waves of development. Next, please. During COVID, we also have lesson learned from the indigenous people, especially the sea nomads, the Chao, and then the Karen communities and other rice growing communities, in that money meant not much during the COVID time, but then food is everything, food and then whatever we need to consume in daily life. So we have the act of sharing food between the Chao Sea people and then the Karen. The Karen have surplus rice that they give to the Chao community, and the Chao community prepare dried salty fish for the Karen community. So this is like the act of reciprocity, the act of sharing that we see during COVID time, which was the time when we should have like reset or rethinking about our lives, not only marginalized or the indigenous people way of life, but our urban middle class and majority people as well. Next, please. So development era during post-COVID, we hope for economic recovery, definitely from tourism, especially in southern Thailand. And this is the photo just taken last week when our team visited Rawai community. You see the upper left picture, the sunset picture, really romantic picture that tourists would feel enticed to come to Rawai. And also we see Rawai community, the lower picture, full of people coming to have taste of fresh seafood. But of all the stalls on Rawai Beach, only 2 or 3 stalls belong to the Chao people. So the rest, belong to outsiders who took the opportunities, again, the opportunities from this tourism development to have profit. And then the right picture is what is coming up, the resort area, it's being built. And then we hope that the beach in front, where you can see large fish traps of the Urak Lavoy and small small huts might be demolished, after the resort finished. So we see this threat, we see the risk still in many places, even present day. Next, please. And we have several issues of development. And one of the issues I would like to raise is the double occupational risk for the Urak Lavoy. David Gold, who worked for ILO, wrote this article on the bends. When the Urak Lavoy adopted the hookah with the air pump from the boat, it's quite dangerous because they dive deeper of course, because of the decreasing fish and marine stock, they need to struggle. So they use this equipment, which is quite dangerous if they came up to the surface really fast. So in several communities, you notice men in the communities, Urak Lawoi, walking with limp, and some of them had to sit on wheelchair. So they have to be dependent on women and other people in the family. So this was the occupational risk for them, whereas the Morgan, they still do free dive. So there's not much problem with them. I said double occupational risk. Next slide, please, because there's another risk. Because when tourists dive down and then they saw a fish trap, usually they open the door of the fish trap or they cut off the trap wire and mesh so that the fish in the trap become free. So this is a conflict between tourism development, diving development, and the livelihood of the sea people. Because I think fish trap is quite sustainable. It's selective of fish and marine animal that came in the trap. But then, with tourists coming in and without knowing the livelihood, without knowing the history of the indigenous people, how they have to struggle in their daily life, they just think that, they would like to save the fish in the trap instead of saving the people who depend on fish trap for livelihood. Next, please. We think that tourism, if done in this manner, is not quite beneficial for the people. So we have to develop community-led or community-based tourism where the community would have to stand up and take care of their own tourism. So this is some of the examples of children's camp or training for young tour guides, because the old generations, they are really shy to express themselves. So the young generations went to Thai school, they are more fluent in Thai language and they can read and write. So these generation could become tour guides and could be the leaders of community-led tourism that we hope to have in the communities. Next, please.
Professor Narumon, just
Yes.
1 minute left. 1 minute.
Okay. I think I can manage in 1 minute. Thank you. And another issue is developing cultural protected area, which is the proposal for the Thai government to adopt this policy. Next, please. I'll go faster. It's this cultural protected area is the kind of development, the alternative development that protects and respects both culture and environment. Next, please. So we have research and research-led actions. We think that our research, our information could be useful for the pushing for the rights of these people. Next, please. Yes, trail guide or some booklet to show the specialty. I wouldn't like to say the uniqueness now because Professor Zacot mentioned about, the term uniqueness. So the specialty of these people to have the trail to go forage in the forest or have the boat that is quite distinctive. Next, please. And this is the development of the policy. We see that after Indian Ocean tsunami, the government paid more attention. There's a cabinet resolution. Right now, there's a draft act on protection and promotion of ethnic way of life. So not only the Chao, not only the Karen, but other ethnic groups who have culture and language that needs to be protected. Next, please. So the special cultural zone, we have over 20 zones, over 20 communities and sites that declare themselves that we are going to keep our culture, the culture that protect the environment. But then is it meaningful or is it just declaration? Next, please. Yeah, and they also group with other indigenous people in several parts of Thailand. Next, please. So it's a community effort, the empowerment that they receive. And the recent effort is field school. The children wouldn't like to learn in closed square rooms. So we ask the children to go out and learn from the parents and learn from the elders. So this is the project to encourage intergeneration learning. Next, please.
Excuse me, Professor.
Yes, okay. Yes, this is Field School. And next is the last slide that we had Chao Lei Reunion Day just last month. And we hope to be able to join Chao Lei Indonesian Reunion Day.
The question for you. I wonder if we have Professor Gusni back or not, Pak Dedi or Pak Wengki. I already also sent a direct message to Professor Gusni, but I haven't heard back.
I haven't heard back from him as
Yeah,
well.
I got problem for the video.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh, is Professor Gusni
Yes,
here?
yes.
Is already in the
Oh,
screen, but no,
please, Professor Gusni, you still have.
no camera.
Can I conclude my
Yes,
presentation?
yes, please.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
3 minutes, Prof.
Yes, yes.
Okay, can. To conclude my presentations, actually the Sama-Bajau, sorry. To conclude my presentation, actually the Sama-Bajau in Malaysia facing 4 significant challenges that cannot be overlooked actually, despite their impressive development stories. The first, there is an urgent need to integrate the Sama di Laut into the national legal framework as an indigenous citizen of Sabah. Secondly, it is essential to address the widespread misconception about the Sama-Bajau in Sabah being perceived as an illegal immigrant. The third, a substantial number of Sama-Bajau families in Sabah still live below the poverty level. And lastly, but not least, many Sama-Bajau settlements in Sabah actually are classified as squatter communities. I think that's all. Thank you, moderators.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah.
It's great to have you back in the screen. Distinguished participants and speakers, we have several questions and we only have 7 minutes time. No, 17 minutes before the end of the session. I wonder if Professor Narumon, could you please read the questions for you on the chat box? And because there are so many. But before Professor Narumon answer, I think there is a question also from Nur Utaminingsih to all speakers. Related to the marginalization and living or ocean rights of these sea nomads, do you have any opinion on the ASEAN's policy or ASEAN prospective movement to facilitate these sea nomads and sea people as the maritime society of the Southeast Asia, considering that one of the ASEAN community pillars is the ASEAN socio and cultural community. Could we have the all speakers? Yeah, back to the floor. And kindly please just give a short answer, each of you. Professor Zacot, could you please start it?
I let my turn to Mr. Wengki. Pak Wengki dulu.
Silakan Pak Wengki.
Yes, I think it's really what we call it. It's a dream, not a dream. Like one of our long expectations to achieve, to connect all of the issue into ASEAN's policy forum or ASEAN's commitment for the sea nomads. But in order to achieve that big goals, we need to deal with our own, like every country first. Like in Thailand, we have these cases and we have the very progress policy recognition in Thailand. Like in the Philippines, we have Indigenous People Rights Act or IPRA. In Indonesia, we are still working with the Indigenous People or Masyarakat Adat, RUU Masyarakat Adat, and also with how to engage the issue of the sea nomad in Indonesia. Yeah, that's really big journey. Let's see how it works. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Pak Wengki. Professor Gusni, would you like to respond?
Okay, I think my concern in Malaysia, it is about the Samadhi Laut. I think the mother problem of Samadhi Laut in Malaysia is being the statelessness native people of Sabah. So in Malaysia, there are, to my conceptualize, there are three types, category of statelessness. The first, ignorant statelessness. Second one is illegal immigrant statelessness, and the last one is inheritage statelessness. So the Bajau, sama di laut fall under the category of inheritage statelessness. Yeah? So I think today Malaysia working to overcome the stateless people in Malaysia, but the big problem with the Sama di Laut, because they are not illegal immigrant, they are not Malaysian citizen. So I think they must be settled through the state level to make the act or the policies to include them as native people as regulated in the Act of Native People Administration of Sabah. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Professor Narumon, would you like to respond on that specific questions on ASEAN?
Yeah, I think it would be great if we work at the ASEAN level, because ASEAN also have several instruments for recognizing the rights of the people, the original people. I don't know. I think in several ASEAN countries, we don't use the term indigenous people. So I think this conference symposium is really a good effort. At least, for the researchers and for the practitioners to come together and think together about the future. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a number of questions to Professor Narumon. Could you summarize the answer before we will have a closing statement from each speaker? So we invite Professor Narumon. But before the closing statement, Pak Wengki, there is one question also specifically for you. Thank you. Please, the screen is yours, Professor Narumon.
Bu Sandra, Professor Zacot want to say something about the first question, I think.
Sorry?
Maybe Professor Zacot, you want to say something about the first questions, about the policy?
Just to add, if I remember that, for instance, in Indonesia, there is a list of suku terasing that are obliged to be assimilated. It gives a frame, of how to do to which extent we can go to integrate or not integrate. Coming from the Badjo people, Nomad people, they don't ask anything. They don't wait anything about us. They are living like they are living, and it depends on the influence outside world. The identity is still the same problem, and I check with the other Mrs. Narumon also talk about the Moklen, and the third group. The Badjo people, they have the three kind of rituals: the sea, the land, and the small boats also for rituals. But I wonder if I check in the village where I live now with tourism. They paint with blue colors all the village, and it destroys everything. They plant antenna for hand phone on land, and now they have all hand phone. And one day, a Badjo girl, a granddaughter of the chief of the village I knew, asked me one day to put on her page of Facebook, 1 like. Please put 1 like for me. It's, you see a different generation and the big. Okay, I stop here, but I just want to mention this confrontation of civilization.
Thank you, Professor Zacot. Professor Narumon, please.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the questions. Actually, I'll be at Chao, the Sama-Bajau reunion. So many of you would, if you would like to discuss, yeah, I think we'll have a chance to talk more. But in terms of problems, especially problem with the land, we have several differentiated problems depending on the land entitlement. If it's a land, state land, like national park or mangrove area, then we are now able to negotiate because of the cabinet resolution. But then if it's private property, then it's really difficult because it's considered like the rights of the owner. And I think the help or the support from the government varies by community. Some community are now more integrated into like the modern world, and some community like the Surin, the photo behind me, the screen photo, is now in the national park, and it's quite far away from the land. So they would like to pretty much keep to themselves and would like to have their foraging and fishing like in the older times. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, there are several questions. So I think Pak Surya Chandra, Ibu Siska, Greg also, Pak Greg, maybe Professor Narumon can give a direct answer later on during the discussion. You can have private continuation because the chat's still there. I think I want to invite each of you to give a final statement before we end the session at 1:15. Professor Zacot, the screen is yours.
No, I just want to underline that I'm, for me, if I heard all the speech I heard just now, it is the outside world that have a great problem. When I check with the speech of Wengki, it's clear for me there are so many problems coming from outside. Mrs. Narumon also. And when you see that there are many NGOs going to Badjo village, teaching to Badjo how to do, how to check the mangrove, it's terrible. It's incredible. So we have to see also, do tourism is a good thing for the Badjo. Why not let the Badjo decide all that? That's all.
Thank you, Professor. Pak Wengki?
Yeah, I just want to add what Professor Zacot mentions. From my side, I think because I concerned with the contemporary issue of the Nomads and also the movement of the organization that work with the nomad in, especially Indonesia, that the place that I work, is very limited, because if you see the research and then the action of young people, and also how do they connect these two issues from this the Bajau and Orang Laut still like separated. So that's why I think this conference and then this network that we have after we do this symposium, and I hope we still keep to discuss all of the issues, intersectional issues of this community in not only Indonesia but also in the region, in Southeast Asia countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Wengki. Prof. Gusni?
Okay, thank you. I think I just add a few things here. The first of all, I think any initiative to address any problem regarding the sama di laut in Malaysia must be involved state authority, because previously so many initiatives by the NGOs, even the United Nations agencies also involved, but it is not materialized. The reason just because they are not engaged the government authority or state government. I think stateless stigma is a very problem to the Bajau Laut. No any initiative can be initiated for them without change their status from the stateless people to the native people with citizenship, because they are actually a part of the Bajau families, but they are already left behind in their native customer rights on land and sea. So I think by any and one against the thing that make the Sama-Bajau di Laut's most complicated issues to be settled, because after 1970 is already too much complicated to be resolved due to the influx of illegal immigrants, which is confusing with the Sama-Bajau as illegal immigrant as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gusni. Professor Narumon, please.
Thank you. The waves of development that I talk about, I think has negative impact on the Chao because we don't know them, we don't appreciate them, we don't recognize them. Out of good intention, for example, the permanent house that we built for them after the tsunami also shown, that sometimes, with the attention from outsiders, it can create negative impact. So I think appreciating and knowing them, understanding them, help, for better future for them, especially if we value indigenous knowledge. That's very important. That's about the sea, that's about the land, that's about biodiversity. And in this time when we talk about climate change and biodiversity loss, these people who were custodians of the land, they have to shift their livelihood, and they might become, have unsustainable future. So if we don't start now, to appreciate them, to have the policy that is to the right direction, then we won't have much hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I think we only have 1 minute. I feel hesitate to make a conclusion of this session. It's so rich. It shows us our limited knowledge and understanding about the Bajau, the Sama, the Chao people. And it really shows that the development policy so far is not based on their perspective, based on their rights. And from the human right perspective, it's a state obligation to really respect and protect and promote the rights of the people. So the challenge is development is also a human right issue, the right to develop, including the right to self-determination. So it is challenging. If we want to sincerely respect and protect the rights of these people, we have to know them well. And we have to make sure that the Bajau, the sea nomads, are really the actors of their development. It's not outsiders who decide. So we learn a lot. Thank you so much. And I believe the organizer will make a good documentation of this process. Appreciation to all participants who already raised questions, very fruitful questions. And again, to all speakers, to Professor Zacot, to Pak Wengki, Professor Gusni, Professor Narumon, we thank you so much for all the sharings and also including your feelings that you shared. It's so important. Thank you. It's a powerful session.
Thank you to you very much.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Ibu Sandra, for moderating this insightful discussion for second session of the symposium. Also for the speakers, thank you so much for the powerful material you have shared to us. So the next sessions will be the third sessions, but before, let's have a break for about 10 minutes. And on the next session, we will discuss about rights, art, and movements. So before we start, let's have a break for 10 minutes. Thank you so much for your attention.